Okay, thank you for bearing with me as we switch gears. We're now going to talk about the relevant costs for decision making. In thinking about relevant costs for decision making, a manager needs to take all of the costs related to a decision making process. I'm going to give you in this lesson examples from my experience working in the hotel business. Uh, because I've gone through a lot of these decision making processes in evaluating certain aspects or costs making those decisions. So I try to make this as relevant as possible. So for short-term decision making, here's the decision making process. First, we define the decision. We got to figure out what it is, what decision is that we're trying to make. Second step is we need to identify the alternative actions. This is looking at the different possibilities. We go with option B, option A, option B, option C. We collect all of the related and relevant information like the costs associated with each alternative. Then we select one of the options, option A, option B, option C. And then once we made the selection, then we put it into implementation, we execute on that decision, and then we analyze and assess it. Did we make the right decision? We go through that process, right? This is the decision-making process, the 5 steps. So in looking at relevant costs, we need to understand the different types of costs. And some of these you already know, and some of these might be somewhat new to you. First is we look at what's called incremental revenue. The word incremental means addition. Incremental revenue is the additional revenue generated by selecting one of the options over another. There's also incremental costs. That's the additional cost incurred if a company pursues one option over another, which leads to, hopefully, the incremental income, which is the additional income. That's incremental revenue minus incremental cost. And of course, the rule of thumb is that based off of the alternatives provided, option A, option B, option C, we choose the one that generates the most incremental income. You see? Okay. In looking at relevant and irrelevant costs, we need to understand and distinguish the differences between sunk costs, out-of-pocket costs, opportunity costs, and avoidable costs. Sunk costs are costs that arise from past decisions that cannot be avoided or changed. We consider sunk costs to be irrelevant from the current and future decisions. An example of this, we previously paid $1,000 for a smartphone. That is a sunk cost because it would not be relevant to the decision-making process of replacing that phone if it breaks. Okay? That's why we call it a sunk cost. Sunk costs are costs that have already happened in the past and have no influence on the current or future decisions. The next is what we call out-of-pocket costs. These are costs that require a future outlay of cash, which is relevant for decision making. An example would be a future phone purchase to replace a current one. Here's my real life example. A long time ago, when I was in the hotel business, we had a really big building in New York. And summertime in New York can get very hot, just like it does here in DC. It gets very hot during the summer. Okay. We were in a very tall building. And tall buildings in New York on the roof, just like here in DC, have chillers on the rooftops. These chillers, think of them like big giant air conditioning units. Keeps the whole building cool during the summer. Okay. So one day I'm sitting at my desk, and it's getting warm in the building. And I'm thinking, oh, you know, maybe they're doing maintenance. I don't know. So the chief engineer comes into my office and says, Dr. B, we got a problem. I said, what's up? He goes, well, the chiller's about to break. I said, okay. What's the deal? He says, well, we got a couple options. Alternative A is we buy a brand new chiller and replace the existing one. And so I asked, well, how much is that going to cost? He goes, about $60 million. My heart nearly exploded. So, okay, what's option B? Option B is we keep the existing one and do an overhaul to it to extend the useful life. Okay, how much will that option cost us? About $40 million. Okay, it's getting expensive. Okay, so that's a difference of about 20 million. What's option C? Option C is we repair it and let it go. The trouble with option C is that we might need to keep fixing it. Those costs add up as well. You know, it's like a couple million every time it breaks. Okay, so those are the three options C laid out. So I start running the relevant and irrelevant costs. The sunk cost in this example, my real life example, the sunk cost is the existing chiller. The cost of the existing chiller. It already happened. You know, the chiller's already there. It's not relevant in the decision process. Okay? It's a sunk cost. The out-of-pocket cost. It depends on one of the three options we choose. If we choose to replace it, it's 60 million. If we choose to do the overhaul, it's 40 million. If we choose to repair it and just let it limp along, it's a couple million. Either way, they're out of pocket because they need to pay it up front. Okay? So those are what we call out-of-pocket expenses. The third one on this list is called an opportunity cost. This is the cost of what is foregone. The cost is of what is foregone, of selecting the alternative action. Okay? The same example. Okay? Let's say we decide to do the overhaul, okay, instead of replacing it. The opportunity cost is replacing. The replacement cost, 60 million, would be the opportunity cost. It's the cost that's foregone. Okay, it's the cost of the one we did not select. That's opportunity cost. And then the third part there is the avoidable cost. This is a cost that can be eliminated by choosing one alternative over another. If I choose to replace the chiller for 60 million, I avoided paying 40 million to overhaul it. Okay. The avoidable cost was the one I avoided. I didn't go with it. So these are relevant costs we need to consider in the decision-making process. So, and that's my real life example. So I'm going to bring up a few more times. Okay, a bunch of other decisions that you might need to make at some point as being a manager. One is called the make or buy decision. Should I make the part myself or buy it from the store? Okay, tough call sometimes. Here's the example. Our company manufactures alternators for cars. Okay, real small part. It helps to turn the engine on. Alternator. Alternates the current, AC to DC. Okay. Company makes alternators. We can buy a key part for this alternator for $1.20 per piece. Or we can make it ourselves for $1.05, which includes direct materials, direct labor, and a little bit of overhead. Okay, sure. So we run out the cost. To make it, it's $1.05, 35 cents for labor, I'm sorry, materials, 50 cents for labor, 20 cents for overhead. Or I can buy it for $1.20. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'll make the alternator part because it's a cost savings of 15 cents. I'll save 15 cents on each unit if I make it myself. Yep, easy decision. What about the decision to sell or process further? In the last chapter, at the end, I brought up the example of the milk processor. They turn raw milk from the cow into different types of milk through pasteurization. They can sell it as is, raw milk, or they can process it further into whole milk, 1%, 2%, etc. Sell or process further. Companies must decide whether to sell partially completed products or process them further into other products. That's where the milk example comes into play. Other examples would include things like oil processors, or milk processors, or whatever. Right? A lot of different options. The decision depends on the cost and revenues associated with processing it further. The further I process it, the more I'm going to spend in that process. Right? The company will select the action with a higher income. If I sell the whole milk as it is, I'll get whatever it's worth. If I process it further to 1%, 2%, whole milk, whatever. Whichever one generates the highest income, I'm going to do. So here we have the example. If I sell it as is, I get 50,000. If I process it further, I can get 150,000. But when I process it further, there's additional costs related to processing it further. Okay. It's also important to remember that there was an original investment of 30,000. But the 30,000 is what we call a sunk cost. It's not relevant. Not relevant. Yeah. Sunk costs we do not consider in our decision-making process. So based off of that decision-making rule, I would decide to go with processing it further because it's going to yield a greater income. Pretty straightforward. There's another fun, exciting decision. Scrap or rework it. Sometimes when we make products, We might make some errors. Okay, whoops, I made a whole bunch of these, but a whole bunch of them are defective. Uh-oh, what do I do? We can either scrap the ones that we made that are defective, or we can fix them, right? Or what we know is rework them. Yeah, fix the defective units. The decision is we go with whichever one makes us the most money. If I scrap the defective ones, I get 4,000 for the scrap. If I rework them, I can sell them for 15,000. But there's an additional cost to reworking them of 8,000. So the potential revenue minus the cost of reworking them equals to the income. In this example, 7,000. The decision here, of course, is I'm going to rework them because it's going to yield me a higher incremental income. Now, one of the other decision processes you might be faced with, if your company sells a wide variety of products and services, you need to understand what's called your sales mix. You may have heard this term from your introduction to business course. Sales mix. Sales mix is a variety of individual products that your company sells. The sales mix. In looking at a wide variety of products, oftentimes these companies are more profitable because they have the ability to sell more than one type of product. Management looks at the most profitable sales mix. I concentrate my sales on the products that make me the most money. Okay. And then sell maybe a couple of other ones. That's my sales mix. If production is limited, then I shift my focus of production to producing more of the units that make me more profit. Yeah, very simple. This alters the sales mix, of course, but we look at the contribution margin per unit from each type of product that we sell. One way that we can illustrate this is through this process of looking at the product contribution margin on a per unit basis for our two different types of products here. Here I have two different types of products, the Pro and the Max. Sales price of the Pro is $500, the Max $750. Variable cost per unit for the Pro is $350, for the Max $550. My contribution margin per unit for the Pro is $150, for the Max is $200. It takes 1 hour to produce one Pro product and 2 hours to produce one Max product. Based off the contribution margin per machine hour, it's $150 for the Max, and I'm sorry, $150 for the Pro and $100 for the Max. Based off of the contribution margin per machine hour, it would make sense for me to focus my sales on the Pro unit rather than selling more of the Max. So, of course, I'll adjust my focus to produce more Pros because that's what yields me higher contribution margin. Okay, another decision that sometimes comes up is the elimination of a segment. A segment could be a department within a business, or it could be an entire product line within a business. We call it as a segment. So management looks at the performance of all of our different segments, departments, or products. Yeah. And we try to decide, hey, if one of these segments is losing us money, we might want to eliminate it. Get it out, stop selling it. It's losing money. Yeah. So a segment can be a candidate for elimination if the contribution margin is less than its avoidable fixed cost. Avoidable costs, as you recall from our earlier discussion in the last chapter, are the costs that can be avoided. Costs that are amounts that are eliminated when the segment is eliminated. Okay, they're avoidable costs. If I stop selling that product, all the costs related to making that product go away. But there's also unavoidable costs to consider. These are costs that continue even if we stop making that product. Right? Example of that would be things like depreciation expense on the equipment. It's still going to be there even if I'm not making the product anymore. Or the rent for the building, still there. Okay? These are unavoidable costs. So I like this example a lot because it reminds me of a company called Peloton. Company called Peloton. They make high-end fitness equipment. You may have heard of them. They've been in the news for all the wrong reasons. Uh, because the stuff that they sell, it's good. It's good stuff that they sell. It's way overpriced, and they didn't sell a whole lot of them. And they just didn't do well. They're a terribly mismanaged company. So I like to think of this as being Peloton. So okay, so here we have three segments. Peloton. We have treadmills, wellness, and fitness. All right. So uh, let's look at the sales for each category, each segment. Sales for the treadmills 40,000, wellness is 200, fitness is 100, total 340. Variable cost for the treadmills 35, wellness 110, fitness is 55. Contribution margin for the treadmills is 5,000. Contribution margin for wellness is 90, 45 for fit. The fixed cost for the treadmills is 15, wellness is 20, fitness is 10. Then we come down to the income. The treadmill, we're losing $10,000 every year by making treadmills. We're earning 70,000 from the wellness, earning 35,000 from fit. So, the rule of thumb is when our income is less than our fixed costs, we eliminate the segment. So, here is the thing. I can avoid some costs, but not all, by eliminating the treadmills. Okay? Because some costs I can't get rid of. So let's take a look at this. So if I decide to stop selling, Peloton decides to stop selling the treadmills, here's what happens. Uh, if I continue to sell the treadmills, I'll continue to lose $10,000. If I eliminate the treadmills, I'll continue to lose $11,000. Now you're wondering, well, Dr. B, why would we still lose $1,000? How? How does that happen? $11,000 is unavoidable. Fixed costs, I can eliminate some of the fixed costs, but not all of it. Because remember that the company still has to pay rent. The company still has the depreciation expense. The company still has the equipment. The company still has all of these other related expenses to making the treadmill that we can't just stop paying. And we can't pay less rent because we stopped making one of our segments. You see? So So what's the difference, right? Uh, if we eliminate the segment, we stop selling the treadmills, we'll lose 11,000. If I continue, I'm going to lose $10,000. I'd rather lose $10,000 than lose 11. So I'm going to keep making the treadmills. Yeah. This sometimes is the case with a company like Peloton that they're faced with, right? They made a bunch of terrible decisions along the way. And then something like this happens, and they're like, should we stop selling the treadmills? They run through this type of analysis. This is the reason why they're still selling them, even though it's losing them money. Okay, because they decided even if we stop selling it, we still have these fixed costs that we can't get rid of. So I'd rather lose less than lose more. You see? So things to think about. Okay. Uh, going back to my chiller example, in the keep or replace decision, managers must periodically decide whether to keep a plant asset like a chiller or replace it when it breaks. We compare revenues and costs associated with keeping the old chiller versus replacing it with a new. The rule of thumb here is replace the asset if the overall income increases, or keep the asset if the overall income decreases with the replacement. Okay. With the chiller, it's difficult because it air conditions the whole building during the summer. My revenue might go down when the temperature of the room goes up. Right? Nobody wants to stay in a hot hotel room. They want to stay in nice air conditioning, especially in the summer. So, what was the decision that we made? You might be asking. We went with a replacement. It cost a lot more. Yeah, absolutely it did. But the reason why that was the better decision is because in the long run, it would have cost more to maintain the existing unit, and it would have eventually hurt our revenue. Right? When the room gets warmer, people don't want to book a warm room. You see? So we went with the replace decision. Similar example here, we have an existing machine, should we replace it with a new one? We run out the relevant costs. Book value of the existing machine, how much I can sell it for. Variable cost per year, salvage value 0, current selling price 25,000. Remaining useful life 5 years. I could sell it. Yeah, I could sell it. And I could buy a new one. If I buy a new one, it's 100,000. Variable cost per year is 36. Useful life is 5. No residual. So I run out the keep versus replace. If I keep it, my income gets hurt by 250,000 variable cost. If I replace it, my sale goes up because I earned the 25,000 from the sale of the old machine. But at the purchase price of 100, variable cost 180. So the income loss would actually be 255 if I replace it. So in this example, I'm keeping the existing machine. I'm going to lose less by keeping. Sales price. This is a really important topic, especially for those of you who are in your own business, thinking about starting a business. Setting sales prices. Determining your sales price is not an easy thing. Okay, we got to look at a lot of different things. We got to determine whether the company is willing to take risk in setting the price. Price takers have less control over setting the prices. Price setters have more control. Price takers use a targeted approach. Price setters use a cost plus approach. When setting your sales price, you need to understand whether you're a price taker or a price setter. You want to be somewhere in between, ideally, but it's not always that easy. So, a couple of methods to consider when setting prices. One is called the cost plus approach. In cost plus, it's very commonly used. Management adds in the markup to the cost to get to the sales price. So this is a three-step process. Step one is we determine the total cost per unit. To do that, we take the product cost plus the selling and administrative costs. The total cost divided by the total number of units expected to be sold gets us total cost per unit. Step two is to determine the markup per unit in terms of dollars. Okay. We take the total cost per unit that we got from step one, multiply that by the markup percentage that we desire. Okay. Then step three, we take the total cost per unit plus the markup price per unit that we got from step two. That gets us to the sale price. We call that the cost plus method. Very commonly used. Very commonly used. We're basically just building in the margin. We're building in the desired margin now. Another method is called the total cost method. Another three-step process. Step one is didn't mean to do that. Step one is the total cost per unit. We have to find the total cost per unit. But you know how to do that. We take direct materials plus direct labor plus factory overhead plus fixed overhead, selling general administrative expenses, get the total cost divided by the number of units we expect to produce. That gets us the total cost per unit. You've done that several times in the past few weeks. Step two, find the markup per unit. We take the total cost times the markup percentage. This example, 20%. Step three, we take the sales price, we take the total cost per unit plus the markup per unit. That's the total cost method. Another method for setting your sales price is called the target costing method. This is a very straightforward formula. We take the expected sale price minus the target profit. Remember, the target profit's how much profit that you want to make from each unit. Yeah. And one of the last for setting your sales price is called the variable cost method. Again, 3 steps. Step one, we determine the markup percentage. We do this by taking the target profit plus the total fixed cost. Do that first. Then we divide that by the total variable cost. Step two, we need to find the dollar markup per unit. To do that, we take the variable cost per unit times the markup percentage we got from step one. And then step three, we set the sales price. We take the variable cost per unit plus the markup per unit that we got from step two. Very straightforward. Those are a couple of methods that you can use for setting your sales prices. One of the last things to consider is what we call special pricing. Sometimes companies would set special prices that are lower than the normal prices in order to attract more sales. Example of this would be putting it on sale, put it on clearance, on discount, whatever you want to call it. The decision to accept special offers is based off of the income effect. Sometimes a manufacturer will do this. They'll have a special offer. Remember? Special offer. Yeah. Manufacturer comes in, says, hey, would you be willing to make this product for me at this particular price? And the decision is, if it increases my overall income, then yeah, I'll do it. If it doesn't, then no. That's the simplicity behind it. So how do we analyze it? Sales in terms of unit, price per unit, and number of units. Define sales minus our variable costs equal our contribution margin minus our fixed cost gets us to our income. If the additional income is greater than the expected income, then yeah, we do it. Absolutely. In service businesses, they use a similar approach. One of the classic examples is the repair shop for the car. Yeah, your car's in the repair shop. You ever wonder how they come up with the pricing? I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay? I'll tell you how the car repair shops do it. We call it time and materials. It's the time it takes to repair the car plus the materials. It's never that straightforward. Okay? So here's how it works. Companies set the direct labor, direct materials, and overhead to find your target profit. There's 3 steps. One is we compute the time in terms of dollars per hour of direct labor. This is the rate includes a charge for non-materials overhead. At the repair shop, we call it time and a half. It's whatever the hourly rates are times 1.5. Yeah. That's why it's like, oh, every hour is like $200 to repair the car. Why is that? This is why. Step 2, compute the materials markup percentage, which includes the overhead costs relating to buying, storing, and handling the material, plus the target profit. When the repair shop charged you $1,000 for a new carburetor on your car, carburetors don't cost $1,000. The reason why they charge you $1,000 is because the markup percentage, which includes buying, storing, and handling, plus the target profit. That's the truth. And step 3, estimate the direct labor hours and costs, direct materials costs, and the markup to get the price of the job. And that's how it works. Those are the 3 steps that a car repair shop would do, should do. And here's an example of how that looks using those 3 steps. Here we have some data, $40 direct labor hour rate, materials $10 direct labor hours, 3% materials related overhead, 22% target profit margin. Step 1, charge for the labor hours and direct hours, $40 per hour, plus non-materials related overhead, plus equals the total hourly conversion cost, plus the target profit, equals the time charge per labor hour. See how it goes to 40 to 61 pretty quick, right? Step 2, the markup for the materials using percentages, 25% in this example. Step 3, direct labor plus direct materials plus the markup equals the total cost of the job. That's how the pricing works. Okay, that brings us to the end of our conversation today on relevant costs for decision making. Are there any comments, questions, concerns at all about relevant costs for decision making? We did okay? All right, you're sure now? Okay, as a reminder, we are in the second to last week of this course. This course ends at the end of next week, December 3rd. Okay. What does this mean for you? This week, you have a couple of things you owe me by Sunday night. Week 6 discussion, which I see somebody started, and thank you to a few of you did. Awesome. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Christy, for starting off the conversation. Appreciate that. I would like the participation for the original discussion to be done maybe we'll say by tomorrow night, because Thanksgiving on Thursday. By Friday night. Okay, Friday night, get the discussion post done, original post, then the responses to classmates. We have certification, LinkedIn Learning certification for cost-based pricing strategies. This is a good one to have, especially as you're going into business. You want this on your LinkedIn profile. Also, you submit the certificate just like you had done for the other ones, and I'll give you a lot of points. We also have Chapter 24 quiz, Chapter 25 quiz. So you owe me the 4 things, yeah, for this week. 4 things. The discussion, the certificate, Chapter 24 quiz, Chapter 25 quiz. So 4 things by Sunday night. Please get started now. Okay, get started tonight. Because you don't want to scramble on Sunday. Nobody likes to scramble on Sundays. If you are a little bit past due on other assignments from earlier on, please make sure you get those in as soon as humanly possible. Those will help you to do well for the course, because next week we have Chapter 26 and we have a review the final exam. Okay. And of course, Chapter 26. Oh, and there's a report. Short report. Okay, a couple pages. Nothing crazy. It's on QuickBooks. All right. So we'll talk more about that next week. All right. Don't stress about it. I just want you to let you know that there's a report, a quiz, and a final exam next week. Any comments, questions, concerns? We're good? Okay. As always, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate all of you. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can email me, call me, set up office hours. Whatever you need, I'm here for you all the time, as you know. And with that, stay safe, wash your hands, do the right things, enjoy some turkey or time with your family on Thursday for Thanksgiving and Friday for the shopping. And have fun, okay? Stay safe now. Thank you all so much for your time today. Appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. B. Happy Thanksgiving too.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.